let me just give it to you straight. There's no such thing as passive income. They're going to loan you up to $280,000 for that property, including the rehab. That's worth $400,000. And now you just made money. I'm sure you've heard the term, oh, I just got a low ball offer. That's essentially what's happening. Why would you go through the hassle of picking up all your stuff, paying movers, and going through all that headache that nobody wants to move, sell the house, and buy another one? Why would they do that? The short answer is they have a problem. You call them, or you call us, or whatever. Hey, I need a cash offer. Within a couple weeks, you have your cash. Done. No inspections, no nothing, just done. That's how you get under market value homes. So you just double your money in a few months. Oh my God, where else can you do that? It's not just picking pretty colors. It's curating an experience and conquering your buyer.
Welcome to Chalkboards to Cash Flow, to our episode, and find out how to buy houses below market value and make money multiple ways from one deal.
Sweet, let's go.
Let's go. What if one real estate deal can make you money in multiple ways? Most people think you buy a house, rent it out, and that's it. But today's guest is going to show you how smart investors create income through strategy, design, financing, and execution. Eduardo is a Houston-based realtor, investor, and owner of a construction management and design firm that helps investors transform properties and maximize profit. So welcome, Eduardo. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, absolutely. So our journey has been quite an interesting one. We have, I come from an industry outside of real estate a few years back. We had a company in the senior care space and we sold it. And when we sold it, before even getting to senior care, I knew I wanted to do real estate. I just hadn't quite figured out how. But I figured out senior care somehow. And so anyways, we sold it and we knew okay, now it's time. It's real estate is it. So the last year where we were in the process of selling that company, I was working 10 hours a week on the senior care business and the other 30 hours learning all about real estate. So once we sold, we were ready to jump. And it's a long story, but we were in between flipping and short-term rentals. And we ended up kind of doing both. But kind of the journey dictated that for us. So we started off doing flips and we did 11 flips in our first 11 months.
Wow.
It was blazing fast. I'd say if you're going to start flipping, don't do that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. But out of that flip inventory, we kept a couple of short-term rentals, a couple of midterm rentals. We tried pad split. We tried different ways. And it really just expanded our horizon in terms of our experience. My wife's an interior designer, so we really leveraged that, especially with the short-term rentals, but even with the flips as well. And this thing just really evolved to a point where, I don't care who you are. If you're Elon Musk watching this, I'm happy that you have a lot of cash, but you just don't have enough cash to do real estate, to buy up all of the real estate, because it's just too much money, right? So it doesn't matter who you are. There's going to come a point where you're going to be cash strapped. You can't buy everything yourself. Although, however, there are ways to do that, but at least for us, it came a point where it wasn't even so much the money anymore. It was our risk-o-meter kind of hit a ceiling, right? Because there is inherited risk with investments. So, and as all of that was happening, we got to a point where I was getting my license initially just to help myself as an investor. I wasn't planning on doing anything for anybody else. It was just for me, for MLS access, to be a better investor. So as I graduated from the program and I joined this place called the Wolf Bag, which is basically meant for investors, investor agents, and licensed investors. It's all about investments. That's where our risk-o-meter kind of got capped at the same time. And I said, okay, well, we have all of this knowledge, all of this experience, all these contractors, the design. I have literally everything that's necessary to do a successful flip and a successful other forms of investments within real estate. I myself, at this moment in time, do not want to continue to invest, not because it's a bad idea. It's just I'm capped, right? I,
Right.
I need a I need to refresh, I need to rinse for a little bit, and then I'll go back to it. But what do I do with all this? So that's where I became an investor agent, which is basically a nice way of saying I'm, you know, I'm basically helping you invest, and I just
Mhm.
use my license to get paid, which is an expense you're going to have anyways. And then I just use my contractors, my team of contractors, to get paid on the construction side, right? Which is an
Yeah.
expense you're going to have anyways.
Right.
And then my wife, as a designer, it's an expense you're going to have anyway. So we found a bunch of expenses that you're going to have regardless.
Right.
And that way we can partner on these deals without necessarily giving up any kind of equity.
Yeah.
So that has really worked quite a bit, and that's what we're doing now.
That's awesome. You're like a one-stop shop.
Essentially, that's kind of what
Yeah.
it became.
That's great. And that's great that your wife is a designer and has that experience. You've got everything there.
Yeah, everything that's needed. So we like it. We really enjoy what we do. I guess that's how we were nuts enough to do 11 and 11. But that's how a way that we can continue to do it
Yeah.
with just a little bit of a different twist on the strategy.
That is great. Great. Well, thank you for all of that background information. Let's talk about what everyone wants to know too is how do you actually buy houses below market value? And where do these deals come from?
So have you heard, I'm sure you've heard the term, oh, I just got a low ball offer,
Hmm.
right? That's essentially how. I mean, obviously that's oversimplified, but that's essentially what's happening, right?
Right.
So there are many situations out there where real estate is just the product, but really real estate is a people's business.
Mhm.
And we are providing solutions to a problem. Why do people want to move? Why would you go through the hassle of picking up all your stuff, paying movers, and going through all that headache that nobody wants to move, sell the house, and buy another one? Why would they do that?
They have to. They've got job transfer?
The short answer is they have a problem.
Yeah, they have a problem. Okay.
Right? So the problem is, oh, I can no longer live here because I got a new job. Or, I mean, there's a list of problems
Or they're
that need to
underwater.
be solved. Right. They're underwater, etc. There are a list of problems that need to be solved. But the
Mhm.
short answer is there's a problem.
Right.
That's the only real reason why you would go through all that pain of moving is because you need to solve a problem. Right.
Mhm.
And sometimes you're even selling it at a loss, but they got such a problem that they're willing to do that. So
Yeah.
the MLS statistically is the place to get the most amount of money for your house, but it's also the most amount of work to get the most amount of money for your house. There are problems, oh, and the most amount of time too. There are problems that you need to solve fast, and there's no time. It's not about the most amount of money, and it's not about, like I need something now. I
Right.
can't wait. Examples: divorce. The court is forcing you to sell, and you have to sell with within this time frame because that's what they say and that's what they need. Probate. It's a big headache, and then the house usually during probate has a ton of problems. You put it on the MLS, it's going to
Mhm.
be a total mess to try and sell it on the MLS because it's got foundation issues. Got if it's on probate, it's been
It's
not cared for a while.
right.
So and there's a long list of problems. Foreclosure is the one that most people know about. Seniors, they need to go to senior care. They don't have the energy. They might have the money, but they don't have the energy, the know-how, the contact, anything to fix up the house and then sell it. So, you end up getting grandma's house, which usually is not properly cared for because they can't even care for themselves. I don't mean it in a bad way. I come from the senior care space. It's
Mhm.
just the reality, right?
Right.
Um, so and there's a whole another list of problems that cause the need for having to sell this house fast, not for the most amount of money,
Mhm.
right? And sometimes it's just pure convenience. Like I don't, why would you take your car and take it to CarMax and knowingly accept less money than if you were to sell it yourself? Why would you do that?
It's
And
easy. You know
faster,
what you're getting.
simpler. Like you walk in and you walk out with your money,
Right.
right? It's the same thing, except in real estate. You call them or you call us or whatever. Hey, I need a cash offer. Within a couple of weeks, you have your cash. Done. No inspections, no nothing, just done.
You're done. Right.
You know, that's how you get under market value homes.
Mhm.
The key for the buyer is they need to understand that, again, no inspections, I pay for all closing costs, all that, but that's all factored in, right? I'm getting it at such at a discount that if I calculate all my math correctly and I'm buying it at the right price, it's fine,
Right.
you know?
You just know the work you're going to put into it.
Well, sweat equity
Yeah.
makes can make you some money. So like my brother, he's done a couple of flips. He's an architect and he's got experience. But the flips that he's done, he's like, I don't want to pay because we're going to talk about how to finance these. So the most common way is hard money. Hard money is expensive money, but it's quick money,
Hmm.
right? And he always told me, I don't want to pay the hard money fees. And I'm like, well, so what's the alternative? Oh, I'll get a construction loan. Okay. Well, you're not going to get good deals that way. Anyways, long story short, he ended up getting a hard money. He got a good deal and he's going to do, a flip the way I'm telling you it's done, right? But he
Hmm.
got a better deal. So yeah, my interest and my cost of money is higher, but the cost of the house is lower. So, at the end of the day, it's just the bottom line that matters. So,
Exactly.
so yeah, hopefully that answers the question at least in a first iteration. I know we're going to dive in deeper into this.
Yeah, absolutely. So finding the house, and you can find them on MLS. It's just solving someone's problem.
You can, and I
Where
have.
else can you
I've
find them?
done I've done several deals on the MLS.
Okay.
But it's not like you can just search on Zillow or whatever and say, "Oh, let's pick this one," and let's it because you don't know what their problem is, you don't know their motivation. Typically on the MLS, you're looking for houses that are pretty beat up.
Hmm.
Because that's the problem you're solving. I'm taking this beat up house off your hands. But many times these houses that we get off market are not even that beat up. Like they're ready to rent. You may need some paint and some minor stuff like 10 or 15K in costs of just getting it up to date, and it's rent ready,
Wow. Yeah.
So but yes, so you can do it on the MLS. I suggest you use an investor agent such as myself. You can try it yourself, but you're not going to have all the data to know what the ARV is and so on. So at least an agent that somewhat knows how to handle ARVs, not traditional agent,
Hmm.
and start making offers and doing your calculations. The better way is to work with what's called wholesalers. A
Oh.
wholesaler is you're outsourcing sales and marketing. They go out and send flyers and they make cold calls and they do pay per click and they do all kinds of marketing to what's called a distressed seller. And a distressed seller is somebody who needs to sell their house now, fast, easy, convenient. They're looking for that seller that needs it now.
Hmm.
Because most of them want to sell on the MLS because it's what gives you the most amount of money, right? But some of them need to get out of this quick. Um, so those are the ones that we're looking for. But for you, you have a W-2 or, most people don't have the time or even the budget because it does take thousands of dollars to do that. So basically, the whole point is that wholesalers have a business of its own. It's its own sales and marketing process and so on. And for somebody who has a W-2 to go and set up a business while you have all this, it's too much. So my recommendation is go to wholesalers
Hmm.
and see what kind of deals they have. Now, of course, you're gonna pay more versus if you were to do their job, just like anything, right? They're gonna have their markup and whatnot. But do you really want to do their job? So, and in that situation, you only pay if you buy. You only
Hmm.
pay for their service if you buy. Other than that, you don't have to pay anything. So that's what's beautiful about it. Um, the challenge is there's usually an earnest money non-refundable, usually about $5,000 depending on what market you're in, and no inspections, no anything. It's just you pay for everything, and if the deal works, great. If the deal doesn't work, then that's it. There's no they're not guaranteeing anything, right?
Right.
And they're not representing you, they're representing themselves. So that's why ideally you'd have an investor agent who knows this and does represent you and
Mhm.
it's looking out for your interest to tell you, hey, no, this is not going to work, or this is the area I'm looking out for you
Yeah,
in the
absolutely.
transaction, you know. And of course, that has a cost, but I think the cost of not having them is far greater than having them. So, does
Yeah.
that answer the question? I know.
Absolutely.
I guess the next question is how do we find the wholesalers? But you know, we're
Work with
thinking
it,
one
work with
step
an
at a time.
agent that's an investor agent, right?
Right. So an investor agent is going to have access to all the local wholesalers,
Right.
and then he or she will source that for you. And the way we do it is I get, man, my text messages are like over 100 on Reds right now because I get so many, and I just know who to pick.
Mhm.
Because John always sends me good deals, but Sally is usually garbage, so I don't really pay attention to Sally that much.
Mhm.
So I've kind of honed in on that. But so I have my list of investors, and I just look through deals all day, every day. Um, And then once I find one, then I'm like, okay, who is this deal for? And then I look at my list of investors and I just send it to them, hey, here's my analysis. Here's what I think. Let me know what you think. And a lot of times they say, yeah, I'm interested. And the reason they're interested is because I know they already told me what they want.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I matched them. And I say, okay, well, I can go walk for you. You want me to go? Do you want to come? Usually the answer is no. They don't want to come because they're their job or they're whatever, but I can go. I go, I take video, I get in the attic, I get on the roof, I check the pool, I get dirty. Like I don't
Mhm.
care, you know. I'm doing it, inspecting it as if I'm buying it as a flip for myself, or even as an investment, whatever type of investment. And then I report back, say, hey, here's the video, here's my thoughts. You're gonna need to do this, this, and this. Of course, you do your due diligence, but based on my experience and my knowledge, here's what I would do to it. And I think roughly it's going to cost you about this much.
Right.
Okay, so now we have an ARV, we have a purchase price, and we have a rehab. Does that math make sense? And if the answer is yes, we start negotiating and we buy it. If the answer is no, we try to negotiate. If it doesn't work, then we carry on. If it works, then we buy it.
Okay. So let's talk about once someone buys the deal, say you have this great deal, what are the options that you can do with it?
The answer is a lot. It really depends on what your strategy is. Before we talk about what's your strategy, we got to talk about what's your goal.
Mhm.
So in investing, what are you looking for? Are you looking for wealth building? Are you looking for a quick hit of cash? Are you looking for a low risk deal? Like what do you want? Right? That's the first conversation we need to have.
Right.
Most of the people I talk to, they say, I want to build up some cash. And then once I build up that cash, I'll deploy it and do something a little more long term for wealth and creation and appreciation and some residual income, as they call passive. Let me just give it to you straight. There's no such thing as passive income. Okay. And true passive income is the most expensive type of income, because you get basic minuscule returns,
Right.
you know. Um, so but it's what they call passive income. What they mean by passive income is the amount of work that I put into it versus the amount of money I get out. There's a big spread there. That's what they mean by passive. Okay.
Mhm.
So for a quick hit of cash, either wholesaling or flipping are good strategies, right? So
Right.
then the next question is, okay, flipping is what most people want to start off with because they don't want to do wholesaling. I don't blame them. So okay, so are you high risk? Are you low risk? Flips got, all kinds of risks. You got low risk, low reward, and high risk, high reward, and everything in between. So we identify that, and based on that, then we create your buy box, which is I want a three bedroom house, 2 stories. All these definitions of what I would want to buy.
Mhm.
Um, and that's how I then match you up with the right investment, right? But the answer is we first got to define what type of investment you want, and therefore what we can then answer, okay, what do we do with it once we buy it,
Mhm.
right? So for a flip, the answer is pretty simple, right? We renovate it and we sell it, right? But what's going to happen, which is what happened with me, is eventually you're going to want to keep some of those. So you flip it and then you realize, actually, this may work as a short-term rental, and I kind of feel like I'm ready for one,
Hmm.
right? And we look at it and we're like, yeah, it works. Here's the math, here's everything. All right, let's do it, you know? Or you may go into it straight. It's like, okay, on this one, this is great. Location's perfect. Everything is perfect for a short-term rental. I'm just going to do that. And we go straight into it with that plan, right? So
Yeah.
the answer is you can do a lot of different things, and it all depends on your strategy and your goals. So I have a little slide here I want to show you.
Oh,
Let
yeah.
me see if I can share my screen. This is out of a presentation I did recently. So these are a lot of different options that you can do once you hold the property. Long-term rental, which is my least
Hmm.
favorite. Then there's Section 8, midterm rental, short-term rental, pad split or co-living, corporate housing, and the list goes on and on and on. And you can mix and match these, right? So I
Wow.
have a property that I was doing a co-living, and now I turned it into a midterm rental, right? Because the
Right.
right opportunity came, and I said, let's do it. You got to stay nimble. You have to stay nimble. You can't just stick to one, right? Because what works today won't work tomorrow.
I
So
like all those options.
yeah. And then there's another option which gets pretty advanced, but basically selling the house owner finance. You're like, well, I don't own it outright. There's a way to do it where you do owner finance with other people's money. We're not going to dive too deep into that, but that's kind of an advanced option. Once you're done and you want to sell it, you can make way more money selling it on owner finance. And way more, I mean hundreds of thousands of dollars more. It's just spread out over time. That's the only difference. So that's another thing you can do with it.
To know. Wow. What role does design play in increasing value? I know your wife's a designer, so what role does that play?
Very large role. If you halfway do your rehab or you halfway do your product, the product that you're selling, then the market will give you halfway returns,
Hmm.
right? I know you're in the short-term rental space as well, and
Hmm.
like if you do that, you know very well like it's going to be very hard to stay booked. But if you do a good product that people want to book, then you're going to sell, you're going to have higher revenue. So the same applies with just about every strategy that you talk about. It's like you need to tell the market what it is that you want, right? If you want a super high ARV, then tell it, and not just tell it, show it, right? And you do that with design. You're designing your product. You're a design tells the market, here's what I'm commanding for this piece of real estate, and here's why, right?
Hmm.
If you don't design with intent and you just let it happen, then you're kind of letting the results happen on their own. And I don't know that that's the right
Right.
approach. You know, you want to be intentional. When we design, we don't design just pretty stuff. We actually look at the comps. It's an investor grade design, right?
Right.
We look at the comps. How can we get the most amount of revenue, most amount of ARV, the most amount of whatever, with the least amount of budget, right? And how can I create or curate an experience and conquer my buyer, my booker, my whoever my end customer is
Hmm.
through design? How can I do that? How can I give them what they want without it costing me an arm and a leg? That's design. It's
Right.
not just picking pretty colors. It's curating an experience and conquering your buyer or booker or whatever, your
Love
client.
it. I love that. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. That's awesome. So, what are some ways to fund the deal? Most of our listeners aren't going to be an all cash buyer here. So, what are some realistic funding options for beginners?
So there actually are a lot of options
Okay.
for that. If you have a W-2 and you have a decent credit, you don't even need all that good of a credit, and you
Mhm.
got a good deal, you can get the deal funded. Okay. The most common way to get it funded is what's known as a hard money lender.
Mhm.
I got plenty of them. I can introduce you to the right one because there's also all kinds of flavors and tastes to these hard money lenders. So depending on what you're looking for, same thing. is the right lender for you. But the point is, this is private money. This is not institutional, not backed by the government, not by. That's why it's fast, because it's
Right.
literally someone's line of credit that they literally pull and they give it to you
Mhm.
to buy the house, right? So that's why it's, and there's a lot more like, hey, it's a lot more relationship based. If I've done a few deals with you, hey, I kind of need a little extra support on this one. Can you help me out? And it's a little bit more of that. But as a first time, they're typically going to give you about 70% of after repair value, including the rehab. Okay. So let's just
Okay.
say, here, I'm going to take out my calculator. Let's say, I don't know, your ARV is $400,000.
Mhm.
So times 0.7, they're going to loan you up to $280,000 for that property, including the rehab. So let's say your rehab is $80,000. Your purchase price can be no greater than $200,000 in order for them to give you all of the money or most of the money. A lot of times we opt to, because it's really hard to get that deal at 200. It honestly is. But we say, okay, if I can get it at 230, then I'll bring the $30,000 down, or 220. I'll give them the $220,000 down. And then they're going to give me the money for the rehab. Those $80,000, they'll give it to me, but they'll give it to me as a reimbursement, meaning I do the framing and say framing and plumbing and electrical, and
Mhm.
then I call them up and say, hey, I'm done with framing, plumbing, and electrical. Okay, here's X amount of money for that. So now you
Okay.
take that money and you do the next step and the next step, the HVAC, the sheetrock, etc. And then you call them up and they'll give you the money. They'll give you 100% of the rehab, all of it,
Wow.
but on a reimbursement basis. So you got to
Okay.
have what I call boomerang money to kind of
Right.
get you through the project until they reimburse you. So once you're all said and done, you have a property under this scenario for 280,000 plus some costs, financing costs, etc. So say 290, 295, that's worth
Mhm.
400,000.
Yeah,
So
that's
now you just made money. And now if you end up holding it, now your refi is going to be based on that. So now you'll be all in with the refi costs and whatnot for 300, 310, somewhere on there. So your monthly payments are lower. You have equity in the property, and now you rent, say, on short-term rental
Mhm.
for higher, which is the highest you can get, but you are paying the lowest you can on the mortgage. That's where your spread is great. Or you can just sell, get that equity, get the chunk of change, and do it again, right? So it just depends on how you want to do it.
Okay, so either selling or refi pays off that hard money loan.
Correct.
And
Yeah,
then
you get into a 30-year mortgage,
okay.
but there are some investor grade level mortgages that don't require a W-2. They don't look at you. They'll look
Mhm.
at you as your credit, but that's it.
Mhm.
They look at, will the property pay for itself? And then if the answer is yes, then they give you the money to pay off
Wow.
that existing loan, that hard money loan, and then now you have, your normal monthly mortgage payments that everybody's used to.
Yeah. Okay. What if somebody listening only has 20,000 to start with?
You
What
can.
can they do?
You can. It's just you got to have, again, it goes down to what's your goal and what's
Mhm.
your ability, and start off with that. So with a
Right.
$20,000 cash, then you just got to limit yourself to a purchase price of probably, like, in Houston, this is possible.
Right.
And if you're not in an area where this is possible, then invest out of state.
Yes.
Um, but you can buy something for 100, 150, 120, you know, put a few, 10, 20, 30, 50,000 into it, depending on what it is. If you buy it for the right price, it works. And then sell for like 250 or something, 280. Just quick math, quick numbers, right? You'll make another 20 to 30K, maybe 40K. So you just doubled your money in a few months. Oh my God. Where else can you do that?
Yeah, exactly. I always tell my friends that are asking, like, well, I don't have all this money to put down. We live in California, very expensive. And I'm like, buy out of state. Find a place where you have the money to make it work for you. There are
Mm-hmm.
so many places.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, yeah, I invested out of state. So you just find an agent like yourself in wherever you're looking or
Yeah.
to help you look.
So I'd say, obviously I'm in Houston. You can reach out to me if you're looking in
Yeah.
Houston. If you're looking elsewhere, There's this group that I'm a part of called the Wolf Pack.
Never
Just
heard of
look
that.
up
The Wolfpack.
Wolfpack EXP. It's a subgroup within EXP, and that's
Okay.
what we do. We're investor agents and we help people invest. So you can look there. Um, or if not, then look up some investor friendly agents. But you
Hmm.
got to vet those correctly because there's many types of investments, and you got to help. You got to figure out if they understand like the BRRRR strategy is an
Right.
example, which is basically a flip but refinance at the end is the difference.
Hmm.
Do they really understand the process of buying distressed, buying low, fixing up, and then selling or keeping it or whatever? Do they really understand that process? If the answer is no, or if they say yes, but then you realize the answer is no, then move on. That's
Okay.
really, really important. Can they find you off market properties? If the answer is no, then you're probably going to overpay.
Yeah.
You know,
Make sure you're finding an investor friendly agent. All right. What advice do you have for teachers, other W-2 professionals that are looking for something? And can someone with a full time job really do this?
absolutely they can.
Yeah.
You just got to understand, like, just like anything, right? It's going to cost more to outsource than to do it yourself, right? So,
Mhm.
I personally can help you with finding the deal, operating the deal, designing it, and selling it on the back end, and so on. Obviously, it would be cheaper if you were to come to Houston and do it yourself, right? But do you have the time to do that? Can you get off of your job? So what really is more expensive? Are you gonna like stop getting paid at your job and do it, or so
Mhm.
but just apples to apples, like if you were to come swing the hammer yourself, obviously that's gonna be cheaper, right?
Right.
But in reality, is it actually cheaper? Um, so that's something that you just have to like know and understand from the get-go.
Mhm.
But if you're like ready for that, which some people just don't like that idea, they have to understand the value of money and all that, and time.
Mhm.
But if you're ready for that, then yes, you'd reach out to somebody that's experienced in that, and hopefully they can help you, like I can with the whole process, or if not, they can plug you in with the right people to help you with the whole process. And so the first thing is finding the right deal. Once you have the right deal, a lot of things can happen. Even if you don't have all the money, if you have the right deal, you can partner up with somebody.
Mhm.
Like I promise you, there's so much money out there. People don't know what to do with it, right? They're like, oh, I
Yeah.
need to invest this. I don't know where to put it. I don't know what to do. And you show somebody the possibility of doubling their money in a few months' time, they're gonna go for it.
Mhm.
You know, of course, here's the risks. Here's the, it doesn't come free, right? But it's possible. It's very possible. Um, they're gonna go for it. It just find the opportunity. That's the key, and then money will follow.
Awesome. Okay. Um, one little question, kind of about mindset. What do you think separates people who succeed from people who stay stuck?
Determination, grit.
Yeah.
Um, I'll tell you on my previous business, when we started, it was not fun.
Yeah.
We were spending way more money than we were making, as any startup would, but
Mhm.
it kind of happened long enough to where it was dangerous, right? And I had other people because it was a franchise.
Mhm.
So I had other people that started their business at the same time as I did. And there's this guy, let's call him Max. That's not his name, but let's call him Max. Max was trying really hard, but he just decided to give up and he lost hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Wow. Yeah.
I stayed in. I had grit. I pushed through. I said, do or die. Like, I'm not going to let go. And I almost got let go, if that makes sense,
Hmm.
but I pushed through and I made it through, and we grew the company. We grew it even through COVID, which was probably the hardest time to
Yeah.
have a business. Um, and then we sold successfully, right? And if it wasn't for that mindset, that 150% decision that I am going to do this and I am going to win no matter what, even if I have to bleed through my hands to get it done, I'll get it done. If you
Mhm.
don't have that decision, then don't even do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
You know, because you're going to be better off not doing it.
Yeah.
Once you're ready, then go. And then the question then will be, okay, well, what do I do need to get ready? Well, it's just like you said, it's a mindset thing. Like you're never
Mhm.
gonna have enough education, enough resources. You're never gonna have enough of all of it. You just got to come to a point where it's like, all right, this is it. I'm gonna do it, and you do it.
Exactly. What is one myth about real estate you'd love to break?
One we broke today is you need a ton of money to do this,
Yeah.
and that's funny because I started off by saying I don't care who you are, if you're Elon Musk, you don't have enough money. That is true, but you don't need a ton of money to do a deal. Now you do need a ton of money to do thousands of deals. That's what I meant by the Elon Musk, uh,
Yeah.
you know, analogy. But if you want to do 10, a handful, two handfuls, you know, you can do it.
Yeah.
You can do it. You know, it just comes to a point where, like large deals like apartments and things like that, like it's just too much money. You have to partner, you have to do syndications and all these other things to raise money to get it done.
Right. Well, Eduardo, this was packed with value. Where can people find you if they want to look in the Houston market, which is a huge market right now and
Mhm.
definitely more affordable than some states like California? Where can they find you?
Absolutely. So you can find us on our Instagram. You can check out some of the projects we have done, and we have fun. There's some funny stuff there. Go and have a laugh. It's at invest style. So basically, the word invest and the word style merged into one. .co. No M at the end. .co. You
Okay.
can also call me or text me at 832-586-6759. You can reach out to me either of those ways. And yeah, happy to answer any questions. Even if you're not ready, that's fine. I'm happy to chat, happy to, help you kind of digest this. Um, and go from there.
Okay. And to everyone listening, real estate is not just buying property, it's buying smart, improving wisely, funding creatively, and profiting intentionally. So if you'd like to connect with Eduardo, he gave you his info and we'll link it in the show notes. And as always, join our Chalkboards to Cashflow Facebook group and follow us on Instagram at Chalkboards to Cashflow. Remember, you don't need to be rich, you just need to have the right strategy.
That's
Thank you
right.
so much, Eduardo.
All right. You
All
take
right.
care.
You too. Thanks for listening to Chalkboards to Cashflow, where we turn real estate dreams into real life wins for teachers and everyday investors. If this episode helped you feel a little more confident or inspired, make sure to follow, leave a review, and share with a friend. And don't forget to join our free Facebook group, Chalkboards to Cashflow, where we support each other every step of the way. Until next time, keep learning and keep growing. And remember, you don't need to be rich to start, you just need to start.